What if you could create the perfect partner with your own hands? What if your artistic vision could breathe life into cold marble and ivory? This isn't science fiction or fantasy. This is the extraordinary tale of Pygmalion, one of Greek mythology's most captivating stories about love, art, and the miraculous power of the gods. In ancient Greece, around the 8th century before Christ, storytelling wasn't just entertainment. It was how people understood their world. The Greeks believed that gods walked among mortals, that divine intervention shaped human destiny, and that art possessed almost magical power. Their myths explored the deepest questions of human existence. What is love? What is beauty? Can we create perfection? Our story takes place on the island of Cyprus, sacred to Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Here lived Pygmalion, a sculptor whose talent was legendary throughout the Mediterranean. But Pygmalion harbored a secret that set him apart from other men. He had sworn off love entirely. You see, Pygmalion had become deeply disillusioned with mortal women. He'd witnessed too much cruelty, too much vanity, too many flaws that he couldn't overlook. The women of Cyprus, he believed, were corrupted by vice and moral weakness. Their behavior disgusted him so thoroughly that he vowed never to marry, never to love, never to open his heart to any living woman. Instead, Pygmalion channeled all his passion into his art. Day after day, he worked in his studio, creating sculptures of breathtaking beauty. His marble goddesses seemed almost alive, his bronze warriors appeared ready to leap into battle. But none of these creations satisfied his yearning for something more. Then one day, inspiration struck like lightning from Mount Olympus. Pygmalion decided to create his masterpiece, a sculpture of a woman so perfect, so beautiful, that she would embody everything he found lacking in mortal females. He would craft the ideal woman, one who existed only in his imagination and his skilled hands. For months, Pygmalion labored over his creation. He chose the finest ivory, white as fresh snow and smooth as silk. With infinite care, he carved every detail. Her face emerged with delicate features, eyes that seemed to hold wisdom and kindness. Lips curved in the gentlest smile, cheekbones that caught light like dawn breaking over marble mountains. Her hair flowed in perfect waves, each strand individually carved with painstaking precision. Her body possessed classical proportions that would make Aphrodite herself jealous. Graceful shoulders, elegant arms, a waist that spoke of both strength and femininity. Even her hands were masterpieces, with slender fingers that seemed capable of the most tender caress. As Pygmalion worked, something extraordinary happened. He began to fall in love with his own creation. Every morning he rushed to his studio, eager to continue his work. Every evening he reluctantly left her side. He found himself talking to the statue, sharing his thoughts, his dreams, his fears. When the sculpture was finally complete, Pygmalion named her Galatea, meaning she who is milk white. And indeed, her ivory skin seemed to glow with inner light, as if blood flowed beneath its surface. She was perfection incarnate, everything beautiful about womanhood with none of the flaws that had driven Pygmalion from human companionship. But perfection came with a terrible price. Pygmalion had created exactly what he wanted, yet she remained forever out of reach. He could admire her beauty, but she couldn't return his gaze. He could speak to her, but she would never answer. He had fashioned the perfect woman, only to discover that perfection without life was the cruelest torture imaginable. Pygmalion's behavior became increasingly obsessive. He brought Galatea gifts, flowers, jewelry, beautiful fabrics. He dressed her in the finest robes, placed rings on her carved fingers, draped necklaces around her ivory throat. He even brought her shells and polished stones, the kinds of trinkets that young women treasured. At night, he couldn't bear to leave her alone in the cold studio. He carried her to his bed, laying her gently on soft pillows, covering her with warm blankets. He whispered endearments to her silent form, kissed her unresponsive lips, held her motionless hand in his. The townspeople began to whisper. Pygmalion, once sociable and engaged with his community, had become a hermit. He refused commissions, ignored friends, spent all his time with his ivory woman. Some pitied him, others mocked him, but all agreed that the great sculptor had lost his mind to an impossible love. Then came the festival of Aphrodite, the most important celebration on Cyprus. The entire island gathered to honor the goddess of love with sacrifices, prayers, and joyous festivities. Pygmalion, desperate and heartbroken, joined the crowds at Aphrodite's temple. Kneeling before the goddess's altar, surrounded by the sweet smoke of burning incense, Pygmalion poured out his heart. He didn't dare ask directly for his statue to come alive. Such a request seemed too bold, too impossible. Instead, he prayed carefully, "If you gods can grant anything, I wish for a wife like my ivory girl." Aphrodite heard his prayer, and more importantly, she understood what he truly meant. The goddess of love had watched Pygmalion's story unfold with growing interest. Here was a man who had rejected all mortal women, yet had discovered the deepest love through his own artistry. His devotion to Galatea was pure, unselfish, and complete. As a sign that she had heard his prayer, Aphrodite caused the altar flames to flicker and dance higher than before. Pygmalion saw this divine response and felt hope bloom in his chest like spring flowers after winter's end. Racing home to his studio, Pygmalion approached Galatea with trembling hands. As always, she stood in perfect stillness, beautiful beyond description, but forever silent. He reached out to touch her cheek, as he had done countless times before. But this time, something miraculous happened. Instead of cold, hard ivory, his fingers encountered warm, soft skin. Galatea's cheek yielded to his touch like living flesh. Her marble-white complexion bloomed with the pink flush of life. A pulse began to beat in her throat. Pygmalion stepped back in wonder and terror. Before his eyes, Galatea drew her first breath. Her chest rose and fell. Her eyes, once fixed and staring, began to move. She blinked, looked around in confusion, then focused on the man standing before her. When Galatea's gaze met Pygmalion's, she smiled. Not the carved smile he had given her, but a living expression of joy and recognition. She stepped down from her pedestal, her ivory limbs now warm and supple. The first person she saw was her creator, and instinctively, she knew that he was also her beloved. Aphrodite had granted more than life to the statue. She had given Galatea a heart capable of love, and that heart immediately belonged to Pygmalion. Their love was instantaneous and mutual, a perfect harmony between creator and creation, between dream and reality. Pygmalion and Galatea married in a ceremony blessed by Aphrodite herself. Their union was so happy, so perfect, that it became legendary throughout the ancient world. They had children together, founded dynasties, and lived as an example of love's transformative power. The myth of Pygmalion teaches us profound truths about human nature. It explores our desire for perfection, our tendency to idealize love, and our power to create beauty in the world. Pygmalion's story warns against rejecting human connection while celebrating the transformative power of genuine devotion. This ancient tale has inspired countless works of art, literature, and theater. George Bernard Shaw's play Pygmalion reimagined the story in modern London. The musical My Fair Lady brought it to Broadway. Even today, we use the term Pygmalion effect to describe how our expectations can transform others. The story reminds us that love isn't about finding perfection in another person. It's about the miracle that happens when two imperfect beings choose to create something beautiful together. Pygmalion learned that true love requires not a perfect partner, but a living, breathing, imperfect human being capable of growth, change, and mutual devotion. In our modern world of social media and digital perfection, Pygmalion's tale feels remarkably relevant. We're constantly creating idealized versions of ourselves and others, falling in love with images rather than reality. The myth reminds us that authentic love requires vulnerability, imperfection, and the willingness to embrace humanity in all its flawed glory. Pygmalion's living statue teaches us that the greatest art isn't creating perfection. It's breathing life into our dreams and learning to love what lives and breathes beside us.